It is exactly 8:59, and in a minute's time it will be 9 o'clock, which means we welcome to the program our Polokwane listeners on One Nation FM. We do hope you're going to stay with us for the next hour. Standing by to talk with us is Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk. He is the school coordinator for Peace and Security Studies and School of Governance. I'm not sure at which university. He will tell us that in a minute or two. A very good morning to you, Professor. Welcome to the program.
Yes, good morning. Thank you very much. I'm attached to UNISA, the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs.
Thank you indeed for that. Okay, we're going to be talking about, obviously, the issue around the Ugandan Prime Minister's visit, President's visit, Yoweri Museveni, to South Africa. And, the visit started yesterday. And we also know that he has called for stronger trade relations among African countries and has also lamented the high cost of buying products and services outside the continent. The whole aim is that we as the African continent should become intradependent rather than dependent on, our overseas trade partners. Is that a possibility? Can we work well with our African neighbors? Given that there's a lot of political instability in certain African countries. So is that still a situation that we can go into?
Yeah, I think you asked the right question. The short answer is that it will take a long time before Africa will be independent from trade with the international community. There are very many ambitious programs over many decades to increase intra-African trade. So African countries sharing what they manufacture and buying what they produce, importing and exporting. And in fact, the latest plan, if you want, is one that President Ramaphosa is punting very energetically, which is the African Free Trade Agreement, to which all the countries have now signed up to, but it will take a long time to implement. We can talk about the technical details if you want. But I want to Museveni, who's now on a state visit. He's correct. It's true that we must increase our trade. I mean, President Ramaphosa said he would like to walk into a shop and buy Ugandan coffee or tea. I mean, that's good. There's nothing wrong with that. But our trade with Uganda is very low. It's comes to about 3 billion. Uganda exports almost nothing to South Africa. To do a comparison, if our trade relations with Uganda comes to 3 billion, we export 300 billion worth of products to China. Closely followed by America, closely followed by European countries. We import about 400 billion worth of goods from China. So we are interdependent internationally, globally, if you want. And that is going to be very difficult in an age of globalization. Very difficult to break. But I think there's nothing wrong with the idea of promoting intra-African trade. But again, the trade relations are skewed. It's very unbalanced. South Africa is probably the most sophisticated economy on the continent. Of all of our trade globally, we send our stuff that we make, 25% goes to Africa, a quarter of what we produce. And of that quarter, almost all of it go to the SADC countries, the Southern African Development Community, meaning our neighbors, Botswana, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and so on and so forth. And we don't import nearly enough from African countries. The argument is that they don't make what we need. We make what we need and we export. So there's a lot of work ahead for our trade negotiators, our economists, and our private sector to actually increase intra-African trade.
So, Professor, what I do also want to touch on, and we'll get to that. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, I want to touch on two issues, but I also want to ask you an issue around human rights. The two issues is briefly on trade agreement, and also, very importantly, we know that we are suffering the issues around ongoing load shedding. And here, Museveni is wanting South Africa to provide them. They want a procurement of coal from South Africa because they need it for the use to transform their high grade iron ore into steel. He also goes on to say that because they are a landlocked country, they're about 1,000 miles away from the ocean, they can't be importing from the West. So they are really pushing for coal from South Africa. Can we afford such a trade agreement with them, knowing what, where we're sitting at regarding ongoing load shedding? That's question number one. And would it be profitable for us to be selling our coal to them? And then also,
Yeah,
let's touch briefly on the free trade agreement.
and we also want to talk about human rights.
Oh yes,
So,
let me get that important question out of the way first.
yeah, I think that's the more
Human
important.
right, yeah, human rights
Yeah,
activists are not happy with this visit by Museveni to South Africa. But Naleni Pandor has said that South Africa is not a nanny state. We won't interfere in a spat between Uganda and its human rights bodies. Where does that leave us as a government? Should we not be putting pressure when we are involved with these type of state visits and say this is not on, this is what international human rights agents are calling on, and you are violating all of those, and over and above of that you're still wanting to have trade relations with us?
yeah. No, I mean, this is a difficult, this is a dilemma. If let's, for argument's sake, we say let's only trade with nations that have perfect human rights records. We shouldn't be trading with most of them. We shouldn't be trading with America to start with. I mean, think of what they did in Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, etc. We shouldn't be
And
trading with
Palestine.
many nations, including Russia, China, and so on. So a pragmatic foreign policy approach would be that you trade with those where you can improve your national interest, which in my view is poverty alleviation. But also on a secondary level, you must do as much as you can working with civil society to improve human rights records elsewhere. It sounds a little bit like an influence campaign as part of your foreign policy. But many countries have so-called soft power, and they exercise power and influence. And I would argue there's nothing wrong with promoting democracy on the continent and even beyond. So I would expect President Ramaphosa not only to meet Museveni, who is accused of human rights abuse, but he should also bring our civil society, our academics, and our intellectuals together in a dialogue with Ugandan civil society. Because indeed, there's much that we can learn from each other. And there are problems in Uganda. And so we can't ignore it.
Okay, so finally, we are running out of time. Let's look at the issue around the coal that Museveni is eyeing here in South Africa. Can we afford to send our coal out to them in Uganda, knowing what we're sitting with regarding Eskom?
Yeah, I don't, unless the two presidents make some kind of a deal that allows for a preferential treatment, I don't foresee us selling coal to a landlocked country like Uganda anytime soon. We've got contracts with external players who are very keen to buy our coal given the energy crisis globally. And I think our coal is forward sold anyway. There's no space for doing this kind of deal on the side, I'm afraid. Uganda will have to think twice about what they're going to do.
Okay, that's where I have to leave it, unfortunately. But thank you indeed for your insights, Professor Anthoni van Nieuwkerk, School Coordinator for Peace and Security Studies and School of Governance at UNISA. Thank you. It is exactly 9:09. News and views on Salam Media. In a minute or two, we are going to be taking not the 9 o'clock news with Zai Jadwit, our news correspondent. Please do stay with us.